They say the perfect life looks great in photos, but nobody posts the picture of the moment right before it breaks. We were the couple people talked about, but never in a bad way. You know, the relationship goals duo on Instagram, all golden hour selfies, anniversary getaways, and matching Christmas pajamas. Ashley and I had built what everyone else wanted, a modern fairy tale wrapped in curated normalcy. She was charming in public, efficient in private, and always knew how to diffuse a situation before it escalated. And me? I was the dependable one, the quiet strength behind the scenes, the guy who never forgot to refill the dishwasher or book the anniversary dinner. I thought we had everything, except, maybe, what mattered most. That night started like any other. I was fresh out of a late meeting, tie loosened, mind fried. Ashley had texted, "Dinner tonight? Just us. Important talk." It felt like one of those moments you brace for. Not quite an emergency, but not casual either. Still, I showed up because that's what I do. The restaurant was upscale. Dim lighting. Cloth napkins. The kind of place with a wine menu so long it doubles as a weapon. She had already picked a corner booth. Already ordered a bottle of red. Already poured herself a glass. Already not alone. Across from her sat a man. Black button-down shirt, clean-shaven jawline, and a smugness so thick it could stain the upholstery. His name? Chase. I knew the name. She'd mentioned him, always with a casual laugh and an eye roll, like he was some harmless workplace character. But nothing about this setup was casual or harmless. "Logan," Ashley said, her tone rehearsed. "This is Chase. From work." "Work. Right. Nice to finally meet you," he said, smiling like a man who wasn't meeting me, but replacing me. I took the seat. I smiled back, because I was still pretending, even if they had already stopped. The conversation was polite. Hollow. Plastic. Chase talked about some client project I'd never heard of. Ashley chimed in just enough to avoid the silence. Her hand, I noticed, brushed the stem of her wine glass more than once. Nervous. I studied their movements. The micro-expressions. The language of people who think they're getting away with something. Then Chase leaned forward, ever so slightly, and dropped a line so out of place it echoed in my skull for hours afterward. "You're a lucky man, Logan. Most people never get the chance to see the truth this clearly." I blinked. Ashley didn't look at me, just kept sipping her wine. The waiter arrived. Chase ordered the steak. Ashley the salmon. I didn't order anything. I wasn't hungry anymore. Instead, I asked a simple question, the kind with 1,000 meanings. "How long have you two known each other?" Ashley's hand froze for a millisecond on her napkin. Just enough for a man like me to notice. "We've worked together for over a year," she replied. Worked. It's funny how that word can mean anything when spoken through a smile. Chase didn't answer. He just looked at me, the way a man does when he knows the next move is his, and he's already made it. I left that night without dessert, but I took something far more bitter with me, the suspicion that the truth had already been served. You can smell betrayal. It's a mix of expensive cologne, denial, and red wine spilled on white fabric. I should have walked out the moment I saw him sitting there. Chase Donovan, the so-called mentor from her office. The name had come up too many times over the past few months, always in passing, always nothing. But there he was, sitting in my seat before I even had a chance to warm it. Ashley had planned this. The dinner. The seating. The wine already uncorked. Every little detail screamed choreography. What kind of woman invites her husband to a restaurant only to sit him across from the man she's already replaced him with? The kind who isn't asking for forgiveness, just waiting for you to catch up. I played along. That's what men like me do, the stable ones, the calm ones, the ones who hold the line while the other side burns the map. Chase had the arrogance of a man who believes he's already won. Every word he said was dipped in condescension. "Logan, you're a smart guy. You know when a chapter's over." A chapter. That's what my life was to him. A few pages. A footnote. Maybe a prologue before his real story began. I watched Ashley closely. She wasn't trembling. She wasn't crying. She wasn't even conflicted. She was tired. Tired of pretending, of explaining, of being the woman I married. That version of her had already packed up and moved on. She just hadn't updated the mailing address yet. "Logan," she said, voice low but not gentle, "we need to talk. That's why I asked you here." "Talk?" I echoed. Looks more like a casting call. That got a flash of something, a twitch in her eyebrow, maybe shame. But she masked it quickly, like a good performer. "I wanted to tell you before it got messy." "It is messy, Ashley." The waiter returned, oblivious to the fact he was delivering steak and salmon to a funeral. I didn't touch my glass. I watched theirs. Toasts without toasts. Smiles without reason. Then came the kicker. The line that cracked the polished surface of our grown-up conversation. Chase set his fork down and said, with the kind of calm only sociopaths and salesmen possess, "You've got two options, Logan. Leave quietly, or face me like a man." That's when it all stopped. The background noise. The clinking plates. Even the wine seemed to pause in mid-pour. Ashley didn't stop him. She didn't gasp or object. She didn't even blink. That silence was the loudest confession of all. I stood slowly, pushing my chair back with deliberate grace. Then I looked Chase square in the eye and smiled. "You think this is the end of something," I said, "but it's just the intermission." He laughed. Thought I was bluffing. Ashley shifted in her seat, not uncomfortably, but cautiously, like she realized, too late, that I wasn't as broken as I looked. I left the restaurant that night without making a scene. No shouting. No thrown glasses. I let them think they'd won something. Because people like them never look behind them once they think you're out of the picture. That's their weakness. And that's where I started to plan. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because of the betrayal, but because of what I saw on her phone the next morning, and how calmly I started to smile. The worst betrayals aren't screamed in your face. They're whispered behind your back while your name's still saved under love in their phone. The house was too quiet. Not peaceful, empty. Like someone had gutted it of meaning and left the furniture behind for show. I came home after the dinner with the kind of calm that only fools or men with a plan carry. I didn't rage. I didn't break anything. I didn't even pour a drink. I just sat on the edge of the bed we used to share and listened to nothing. Ashley wasn't home. Shocking, I know. I stared at our wedding photo on the dresser for a while. The way she leaned into me in that picture, forehead pressed to mine like I was her home. A memory wrapped in pixels and fiction. By 6 a.m., I still hadn't slept. But I had made one decision. I wanted the truth, not just the implication. Her phone was right there, charging on her nightstand. She'd always been smug about not having a passcode, said she didn't need one, because trust should be the only lock. Turns out, trust is the easiest thing to pick. The first text was from him. "Chase. Of course. You were incredible last night. Can't believe how easy you took it." Followed by a wink emoji. The next was worse. Not in words, in tone. It was her reply. "Told you. Logan's all bark. He'll move out quietly. He always folds." Folds. Like I was a cheap lawn chair in her perfect patio set. I kept scrolling. Photos. Hotel receipts. A restaurant booking for next weekend, the same weekend she told me she'd be visiting her aunt in Napa. She wasn't just cheating. She was confident I wouldn't do anything about it. That's the part that stung deeper than the affair. It wasn't just that she chose someone else. It's that she saw me as disposable, predictable, a background character in her own twisted rom-com. But the problem with underestimating someone is simple. You never see them coming. I made breakfast. I fed the dog. I cleaned the espresso machine. And I waited. When she walked in at 8:12 a.m., wearing sunglasses and guilt disguised as casual confidence, I greeted her with a smile. "Morning," I said, sliding her mug across the counter. She blinked, surprised. "You're up early." "I've been thinking." She froze mid-sip. "About what?" I leaned in, elbows on the counter, voice steady as a sniper's breath. "About Chase. About last night. About how easy it is to fake love when the other person still believes in it." The color drained from her face like wine spilled on white carpet. I don't know what she began, but I held up her phone. Unlocked. Open to the last message. Her words. Her plans. Her betrayal in plain text. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her silence was fluent in guilt. I didn't yell. I didn't ask questions. That part of me, the part that needed explanations, died somewhere between the appetizer and the betrayal. Instead, I said, "You don't need to pack. I'll be gone by tomorrow. But just know this, you didn't end anything last night. You started something." That morning, I left the house a broken husband. By nightfall, I'd become something else entirely, a man with nothing to lose and a plan he wasn't ready to explain. Yet, revenge doesn't start with anger, it starts with silence, and a man walking into his garage with a full tank of dignity and nowhere left to drive it. I didn't cry. Not because I'm made of stone, but because the tears already happened, just quieter, years earlier, in the form of compromises I made while Ashley stopped making eye contact. I packed with precision. 3 bags, one for clothes, one for tools, one for evidence. The last was the most important, a neat folder of receipts, messages, screenshots, and a backup flash drive labeled Truth. Simple, undeniable, lethal in the right hands. She tried to call my name once. Just once. That Logan, halfway between curiosity and guilt. I didn't answer. Not because I was ignoring her, but because I was already talking to someone else. My lawyer. I had made the call before breakfast. Told him everything. Not just the affair, but the setup. The public humiliation. The financial entanglements Ashley didn't realize I'd been tracking for months. See, while she thought I was the guy who folded, what she didn't know was that I was also the guy who listens, deeply, who watches, who takes notes. Not in a petty way, in a strategic way, because you don't strike back by shouting. You strike by subtracting yourself from their narrative and letting the silence rearrange the room. I booked a short-term rental downtown. Nothing flashy. Industrial loft, one window that looked out over the city like an old man watching a storm roll in. I liked it. It felt honest. That night, I pulled out the file and started building. Not revenge. Not yet. Just context. Ashley had given me the why. Now I wanted the how, the when, the weakness. I revisited the texts. Not just Chase's, but Ashley's messages to others. The way she crafted stories, planted seeds. The little lies layered like varnish on the truth. I cross-referenced her calendar with her bank records. Checked the guest history at the hotels she swore she never visited. It was like rebuilding a collapsed house from the inside, and finally seeing the cracks I had painted over for years. And as I worked, something strange happened. I didn't feel sad. I felt free. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't adjusting myself to fit into her script. I wasn't editing my sentences, dulling my ambition, or standing at the door like a retriever waiting to be let back into a room I was never meant to be in. No, now I had the blueprint. Now I could decide how this story would end. But not yet. Timing is everything. And the best revenge isn't loud. It's perfectly timed, impossible to trace, and leaves everyone wondering how you disappeared while smiling. The next time Ashley saw me, I wasn't the man she remembered. I was the consequence she never considered. And I was just getting started. The first time I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself, I didn't panic. I smiled. Let me tell you something strange. When your life explodes, people expect you to fall apart. Cry. Beg. Post cryptic quotes on social media. But there's a quieter transformation that nobody talks about. When grief turns into clarity and you start to enjoy the silence more than the noise. That's where I was now. The loft downtown became more than just a hideout. It became a lab, a gym, a church. Each morning I woke up earlier, ran farther, ate cleaner, read more, slept less. I wasn't chasing peace. I was building power. Quietly, carefully. Ashley didn't know where I was. She didn't know who I was anymore. But that's the point. You don't defeat people like her by yelling on the front lawn. You do it by becoming someone they don't even know how to fight. At work, I sharpened every edge. I'd spent years in the background, keeping things running while other men in louder suits took credit. Not anymore. At meetings, I spoke less, but when I did, people listened. My boss asked if I considered a regional director role. I told him I'd think about it. I already had. But the real change wasn't external. It was internal. I used to ask myself, what did I do wrong? Now, the question changed. What am I going to do with this power she handed me? Because betrayal, if handled right, is a gift in ugly wrapping. It shows you who never deserved you. And more importantly, who you could become without them. I still kept tabs on her. Not obsessively. Strategically. She'd posted a photo the other day, wine glass, balcony, a sunset she didn't earn. Caption, healing. One day at a time. Hashtag new beginnings. Healing, huh? Cute. What she didn't know was that I had already filed the paperwork. The legal gears were turning quietly in the background. Financial separation. Asset protection. Digital forensics. My lawyer said, "You're playing chess." I said, "No, I'm building the board." But there was one more piece to move. Her parents. They adored me. Always had. And Ashley had avoided telling them what really happened. So I invited them to lunch. Not to slander her. Not to rant. Just truth. I showed them the text messages. The hotel receipts. The timeline. They sat there, silent. Her mother covered her mouth. Her father just stared at the table. When I was done, I pushed the folder across the table and stood up. "I didn't come here for your approval," I said. I came here to return the illusion. And I walked out. Because people like Ashley don't just need attention, they rely on silence to protect them. And I wasn't protecting her anymore. By the time she realized I was rewriting the narrative, it was already being printed, and the title? The Man Who Didn't Break. There's a version of me Ashley was counting on, the broken man who'd crawl away quietly. She bet on that version. She lost. Let's get one thing straight. Healing isn't this soft, poetic sunrise people post about. It's war. Quiet, internal, precise. It's waking up to your own reflection and deciding not to flinch. I wasn't healing to be happy. I was healing to remember who I was before I started shrinking to fit her comfort zone. And people started noticing. My coworkers asked what changed. You look sharper, one of them said. Like someone just cut the brakes on your old life. I just nodded. Let them guess. Ashley, meanwhile, was still performing the role of the enlightened victim. Weekly selfies with captions like, "Sometimes growth means losing people. Some men can't handle strong women." Strong? She had the emotional depth of a cereal box. But sure, keep posting quotes while I rearrange the ground under your feet. My lawyer had already secured a forensic accountant, one of those quiet men who doesn't say much but knows how to find every cent you thought you hid. Turns out Ashley had opened a personal account 6 months before she ever mentioned the word distant. That account had Chase's fingerprints all over it. Joint deposits. Secret vacations. A lease application for a downtown loft she never planned to share with me. So I smiled. Because all she did was make my case cleaner. Then came the call I was waiting for. "Ashley." "Logan," she said, voice soft, like she thought I might still care. "I think we need to talk." We did. At that restaurant. Remember? You ordered betrayal. I left before dessert. She hesitated. Things have changed. Oh, they had. Chase had been laid off. Turns out, charisma doesn't pay rent. And Ashley? Well, she was realizing fresh starts cost money, and I was no longer subsidizing her fiction. "I didn't expect things to happen this way," she added. "No one does when they mistake lust for leverage." I could hear it, the crack in her tone. Regret, maybe. Or the slow realization that I had become someone who no longer feared losing her. And then she said it. "Maybe we moved too fast. I miss us." That line used to undo me. Now it just proved one thing. She wasn't missing me. She was missing the man who made her life easy. And that man didn't live here anymore. I didn't hang up angry. I hung up smiling because that call wasn't a plea. It was a warning that the storm she started was finally circling back. She thought she was breaking my heart, but all she did was free my hands to start building something sharper. It's funny how betrayal makes you efficient. You stop wasting time on the wrong people. You stop over-explaining. You stop showing up to fights that were rigged from the start. Instead, you invest. And I did, in myself. In the truth. And, surprisingly, in justice. The forensic accountant came through. Every transaction. Every missing dollar. Even a PayPal payment from Ashley to a florist. During a weekend she claimed she was visiting her sister. The flowers weren't for her sister. They were for Chase. Card included. "Can't wait to build something real with you." It would have been laughable if it weren't so pathetic. Real? She funded it with my income, my sacrifices, my loyalty. So I documented everything. Not to weaponize it, but to clarify. Because in court, clarity is power. When the financial discovery phase of the divorce began, Ashley's smugness started to crack. She called again. "You don't have to drag this out. We can split things fairly." Fairly. The same woman who tried to rewrite our marriage into a sob story where she was the misunderstood protagonist. "No worries," I said. "I'm just following the paper trail. You left the breadcrumbs. I'm just organizing them." She didn't answer. Probably because Chase couldn't help her here. I was no longer arguing. I was auditing. And everything she tried to hide was now itemized, cataloged, and queued for review. She thought the silence meant surrender, but I was just saving my voice for the final statement. Every lie has a paper trail, and I walked into court wearing mine like armor. Courtrooms are funny places. Not because of the law, but because of how many people walk in thinking charisma wins over character. Ashley was dressed like she was auditioning for sympathy. Neutral colors. Soft makeup. The "I'm just a woman trying her best" look. Chase didn't come. Apparently building something real didn't include sitting through a deposition. My lawyer laid it all out. The money. The timeline. The premeditated move-out plan. It wasn't emotional. It was forensic. Ashley's lawyer tried to reframe it. Ms. Harper was feeling emotionally neglected. My lawyer smiled. And yet she opened a secret account 4 months prior and booked 3 hotel stays using joint funds. We're not here for feelings. We're here for facts. Ashley didn't look at me once. Not because she was ashamed. Because she was calculating what she still thought she might get. And when it came to the custody clause for the dog she rarely fed and the house she didn't help fix, I didn't fight her. I gave her everything she said she wanted. Because I had already taken the one thing she couldn't replace. My narrative. When court adjourned, she tried one last time. We were good once, she said quietly. No, I replied. I was good. You just got used to the benefit plan. She thought that was the end of the story, but I hadn't even opened the final envelope yet. Closure isn't always a conversation sometimes. It's a delivery. A week after the court ruling, I mailed her the envelope. No return address. No handwriting. Just her name printed neatly on a blank label. Inside, one photo of her, laughing, at a restaurant. The same one from that night. Only this photo was dated 2 weeks earlier. Taken from the corner booth by me. She never even noticed. Too focused on Chase. Too comfortable in the lie. Under the photo, one sentence, typed cleanly on the back. You should be careful where you rehearse betrayal. Some of us take notes. Nothing more. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a cry for attention. It was a souvenir. From a man she thought had no spine, no plan, and no exit strategy. And when she called, because I knew she would, I didn't answer. She had made her choice. I had delivered the receipt. But even she didn't see the final move coming, and when it landed, it wasn't cruel. It was poetry. The best revenge doesn't sting, it echoes. 2 months passed. She moved in with Chase. That much I'd heard. The honeymoon phase was loud and performative, like all things built on fantasy. But then the cracks started. He didn't want commitment. She wanted security. He wanted excitement. She wanted someone to fix the pipes. She called me again. Voicemail. Again. I was already gone. Not geographically, spiritually. I'd started a small side business. Consulting. Independent. Quietly successful. Rebuilt relationships. Reconnected with people I'd neglected while trying to keep her love afloat. And then, on a Friday afternoon, a package was delivered to her new address. A gift box. Wrapped with care. No note. Just her name on a card. Inside? A book. Our wedding album. Every photo carefully preserved. Except every picture of me had been removed. In their place. Quotes. Observations. Warnings. Pages sliced with truths she never expected me to see so clearly. At the end of the album, a final photo remained. Not from our wedding, from court. A scanned copy of the judgment. Asset split. 70/30ths. She lost the house. She lost the leverage. She didn't lose me. Because I was never hers to keep. Just a man she thought would never find his voice. Now, I don't just have my voice. I have my future. And I wrapped the truth in ribbon, because I wanted her to know I wasn't bitter. Just done. Let the record show. I didn't break. I evolved. And some betrayals don't destroy you. They reintroduce you to yourself.